Hi, I'm James Michael Riley, and this is Jim's Friday Freakout. In 387 BC, the Gauls invaded Rome. And this was not the Rome that was so successful in their fighting techniques later. The Gauls defeated the Romans, and the Romans retreated to the Capitoline Hill in the middle of the city. One night, the Gauls tried to creep up the hill secretly to attack them, but they were alerted, and the Romans were able to repel the Gauls. What alerted them? Sacred geese that were living on the hill were what gave away the approach of the Gauls. So there have been many extreme security features employed by human beings over the millennia. And sometimes it was animals, usually dogs, occasionally something unusual like geese, or maybe even something else. But one thing I'll tell you is that when it comes to security animals, usually you need one that's a little bit more of a team player. Tonight, extreme security. So that was one way to do it, but going back into ancient history, one of the most successful ways of protecting yourself and your property was to simply put it all up on a hill. And few took this as far as the monks who built monasteries in Meteora, Greece. They were built during a time when the Turks were invading Greece, and the Turks did not look too kindly on monasteries. This was such a successful way of keeping themselves safe that 6 more monasteries were built along the same range of cliffs. Back in the day, the only way up was ladders tied together and baskets on ropes. And those baskets were used not just to haul supplies, but also people. There are some other ways that Greece has used their hills to great effect in creating a secure situation. A few years ago, my wife Nancy and I were on vacation, and we went to the southern part of the peninsula, to the town of Nafplio, where 1,000 steps up a hill, the Venetians built a fort back in the late 1600s. So great exercise for tourists, a major deterrent for attackers. Castles and forts put on hills have been one of the ways that people have created security over the years. But did you ever hear of this particularly insane security feature? Machicolations. I hadn't either, nor had I heard them by their more familiar term, murder holes. These are holes in the bottom of overhanging parts of the wall, usually around the gate, where rocks and boiling oil could be poured on attackers. Leave it to those castle builders. Dogs. Here's a chart that shows the aggressiveness of various breeds by category. Their aggressiveness to other dogs, their aggressiveness to humans, etc. Security dogs have to have the right combination of temperaments and size and strength to do the job. But what this chart doesn't include is one of the most extreme security dogs ever, the Tibetan Mastiff. These things get up to 150 pounds. In Tibetan, they're known as the doki, or the tied dog. In other words, you would tie them by your gate during the day, then you would let them loose within your fence at night. And this was a weird detail, and this was offered by the American Kennel Club website, that the doki were usually kept with Lhasa apsos, which alerted them to the appearance of any stranger. Now, I'm sorry, are you saying these Tibetan Mastiffs don't have acute hearing and smell and sense of sight like most dogs do? That they need Lhasa apsos around to let them know someone's approaching? But boy, how's that for a bait and switch? If you ever wanted to break over and jump over someone's fence at night, you hear a Lhasa apso barking, it would be fun. And you get in there and you see one of these. Oh, by the way, as I mentioned, dogs are the go-to security animal and have been for thousands of years. But llamas are also, especially when it comes to defending herds of sheep and goats. They take them as one of their own. They get up to 6 feet tall. They can weigh over 200 pounds. And they tend to respond toward threats in a very active and aggressive way. But based on my limited experience at petting zoos, I can affirm that. Fences and walls. Barbed wire was an invention of American cattlemen in the 1800s. And it has been used in various situations where security has been needed, including to devastating effect in the trench warfare in World War I. But barbed wire on steroids is razor wire. Now, we've all seen this in the more modern era on tops of fences. There's a prison near Newark Airport here in New Jersey where you can see razor wire along the top of the fence. They can be used to keep people from getting in, to keep people from getting out, or both. And we've all seen, I'm sure, other ways of making the tops of walls and fences secure. Broken glass, broken bottles set into the cement. And I saw something really hardcore when I was in Paris in 2012. There was a top of a wall that featured these steel spikes that come to a really, really sharp point. They were just obviously meant to indicate to anyone who might consider climbing this wall, which was around a government building, don't bother. You will die, it will be your own fault. But here's something that surprised me even more. Do you see these little razor-like protuberances on this steel? This is on the Eiffel Tower. Boy, that's something they don't put in the tourist guides. But there have probably been a lot of people who have tried to climb the Eiffel Tower over the years, and this is a way of deterring that activity. Here's a weird little bywater in the issue of extreme security. Columbia University is, as you know, an Ivy League school. Way uptown in Manhattan, has a beautiful campus. I know a guy who worked in Columbia University campus security back in the late 80s and early 90s, back when the crime rate in New York was really bad. Like last year there was 477 murders in New York City. 1990 there was over 2,200 murders. So that was the situation. This friend of mine said there are criminals who make their living preying upon Columbia University students. So they just had a very extreme policy. First of all, they were sort of deputized by the New York police to make arrests, which is not usually the case with campus security. If you were found in a Columbia dormitory and you were not a resident there or a guest of a resident, you were arrested. He said there was one time they just found a guy just putting menus under doors, the most innocent little activity in the world. They took him away in handcuffs. So that's just one little side story. Cheyenne Mountain. Now, this is a U.S. military installation deep under a mountain in Colorado, which was made famous by, among other movies, War Games with Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy. Anyway, Cheyenne Mountain is cut deep under this mountain and has huge steel blast doors. These are intended to survive nuclear, biological, and chemical attacks, and also to protect the contents, specifically the electronics and the computers, from electromagnetic pulses. Inside this mountain is three-story buildings that sit on shock absorbers, giant springs like in a car, to protect against the vibration that would happen in the event of a nuclear attack. Speaking of enormous explosions, where we don't want them to be, nuclear plants. Now, these have a lot of the security features you would expect. They have fences, they have razor wire, armed guards authorized to kill, and signs telling you that the armed guards are authorized to do exactly that. But there's a new threat, UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, aka drones. So one solution that was put forth in a paper I read on researchgate.net, and you can see it in this diagram here, drone jammers. Now, little did I know that there are many websites addressing this as a whole new industry. There's droneshield.com, perfectjammer.com, jammershop.com. The idea is that you have towers around your perimeter, along your fences, that contain these jammers. And when a drone encounters a jamming signal, it's probably not going to make it fall out of the sky. What it does is it makes it revert to a program where it automatically returns to its controller, which helps you figure out who the people are that were sending this drone against your nuclear facility in the first place. The use of deadly force is authorized is the kinder way of saying trespassers will be shot. And you can still buy those signs online. Sometimes they're a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But they said exactly that and nothing more than that back in the day. Back when my father was in the military, trespassers will be shot is simply what they would put on a sign. And he was playing golf once on a golf course that was on a military base, where he saw one of these signs outside of a forested area on the base that he didn't really know much about. And as he was playing golf, some sirens went off, and out of a road from this forested area came a Jeep, followed by a big truck, followed by another Jeep. And in the Jeeps were soldiers with guns drawn. And on this flatbed truck, my father looked at it and said, "God almighty, that's an A-bomb." So, under the circumstances, I think trespassers will be shot was maybe not such a bad policy after all. But I said to my dad, didn't they even throw a tarp over the A-bomb? No, they had not. Okay, I want to thank Slate.com, History.net, Pinterest. I want to thank the American Kennel Club, ExploringCastles.com, PetHelpful.com, ResearchGate.net, and many more for the content in this segment. Thanks for joining Jim's Friday Freakout. We'll see you next week.